When did you sleep the 16 hours? Last night?
Yeah, sometimes.
Slept in this morning?
I didn't have a big night. The usual night on a Vegas fight night is you finish at about 12:30 or 1. That's when you get out of the stadium.
Yeah.
After all the media and all of that. Then you've got the adrenaline.
Yeah.
And so then you're like 3 o'clock in the morning, you're wide awake. Then you're trying to get a feed. Where can I get a feed in the middle of the night? Then you're in bed by like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But then you're up at 9 to go to the airport. Then you're on the plane, 2 flights. But then if you're no good sleeping on the plane, it's difficult.
Yeah,
and then I'm no good sleeping on the plane.
Oh, okay.
So even though I'm dead tired, I'm just no good. I need to be lying down. And then, by the time I get back to New Zealand, I got nothing left. Just because of that whole process.
Yeah.
And it's because I want to get out of there so fast.
Yeah.
I'd rather just get out of there first flight out. What the boys tend to do is stay till Monday. So they just laze around all Sunday, or Monday morning they laze around and they have a Monday night flight. Yeah, but I'd rather be home.
Eugene, super successful weekend, Dan and Alex.
Yeah. I mean, those trips, they all ride on the results, right? It's a great trip if you get the wins, and if you come back with the hours, then it ended up being a shit trip. So it doesn't matter what you did in between. That's just how it is. Those trips are for one specific purpose, to get wins. And so when you come away with that, it becomes it's the best trip of your life. So I'm extremely pleased that we managed to get both those boys across the line with the W's. So yeah, it was a great week, great weekend, great camps.
Tell us a little bit about the weigh-in, because when Dan's opponent, how many times has this happened to see kickboxing fighters?
Yeah. It's disappointing. It's disappointing that at that level guys are making weight. Ordinarily, I would go in quite harsh on the other person that missed the weight and their team, because their team is that's responsible. But I'm not going to.
What's the reason?
Because I'm very good friends with Jalen's coach. He's a very nice man, and they were very apologetic. Jalen's a very nice guy. He was very apologetic. Something went wrong in their camp that caused that, and I'm pretty sure that will never happen again to Jalen, that he will never miss weight again. And so I'm not going to go on my usual rant. And what also helps is that the rightful person won, which is a very difficult thing to do, because overwhelmingly, statistically, the winner is always the person that misses weight. Not all the time, but statistically it's quite skewed in their favour. So very rarely does the person that make weight win over the person that missed. And this was one of those rare occasions that in my opinion, the rightful person won, because he was the one that stuck to the rules. Something went wrong in Jalen's camp. I'm not going to go on my usual rant that I do, because I want to be respectful towards him and his trainer, who are friends of mine. But they realised I made a mistake, and hopefully it never happens again. And like I said, it also helps that the rightful person won, I think.
It didn't look too good after round one. Jalen had a real good round number one. Dan was in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, this guy is a unique individual, a unique athlete, able to have his attributes in this category, this weight category. And what I critiqued a little bit about Jalen, having fought him before with Brad, is that I felt that he was not. I thought for a person with his physical attributes, he took some unwarranted risk. And I understand that you've got to do that. There's things on the line, like your status, your place in the company, bonuses, win bonuses, all that. But when you get someone with these physical attributes, I always think it's the responsibility of that person and the team for him to get the most exciting win as possible, but with the least amount of danger. And I was always very critical about the way he did that. I thought that was essentially what we worked around. His exposure to risk was what we worked around with Brad's plan. He did really well in this fight with Dan, and obviously that had a lot to do with Brad and Dan are completely different fighters with completely different reaches, but he did really well using that length and not exposing himself to the usual risks that he does. I thought he's got better at using his reach, basically. And whether he had to do that because of the guy he was fighting or not, I'm not sure, but I think he's just got better at using that reach. And he's going to be a problem for everybody, because as he gets better at understanding his distance and his reach and fighting these high caliber guys, he's just going to be a problem because that's how he was born.
Was there something that you said or pointed out to Dan? What was the difference between round number 1 and round number 2?
Yeah, I mean, round number 1, the real difference was Dan was able to, and this is typical of when you go for a fight, Dan was able to get more comfortable with fighting him at range. We wanted, as much as Jalen had the reach advantage, Jalen's also very rarely fought someone with Dan's reach advantage. So we saw that even though there was a discrepancy in the reach, that there was an advantage for Dan because Jalen wasn't going to be used to Dan's reach. So we wanted to test Jalen on the outside. We wanted to actually test him there and see if we could pick certain shots off from the outside. And then obviously we had our plan that committed us more into the middle range and the inside. And we didn't really, the real truth is he didn't really enact that in the first part. And then as the second rolled on, then we told him to put on the gas for, and then our middle range, inside range kind of plan, he started to work more towards that and get away from the plan that we had on the outside. And as he did that, he found a little bit more ascendancy with Jalen, and it was the right thing to do in round 2. It was the right thing to do against someone who missed weight and had a hard weight cut, is to be a little bit more aggressive and get into the middle range and that inside range a bit more. And he did that, and he started to find some ascendancy there, as you can see. So that was the main thing. He just enacted a different part of our plan. He just enacted it and was more forceful with it. Yeah.
Dan was unlucky, the time ran out when he had the rear naked choke, but it was also in round number 2 when he broke his arm. When did that happen and how did it happen?
Yeah, he's pretty sure it was round 2, and I think it would have been a kick. And the thing is, when you break a bone, sometimes adrenaline's an amazing thing, right? Sometimes you can fight for a bit, but gradually as the fight goes by, it just gets worse and worse. And in fact, what the body does eventually is it shuts it down. It shuts the limb down. You lose operation of it, because the body's like, that can't work anymore, and it just shuts it down, and you don't have any control. And that's what was progressively happening through to round 3. And then in the round 3 he got him down, which was thankful for thankful that happened, because if Dan had been standing up he would have been exposed to that arm a bit more. But we had little inklings that he had problems with the arm when he was on the ground, particularly when he left it. Jalen had his knees tucked into kind of like a semi-knee shield position, and Dan was leaving his arm over the top. We felt like, man, why isn't Dan just swimming his arm back inside? But he had no use of his arm. He couldn't do anything with it. So yeah, I think round 2, and then it progressively got worse, but luckily the position favoured us, and he didn't have to expose the injury. Yeah.
Where do you put that in Dan's resume? How high up the list is it?
That's one of the highest caliber opponents, possibly 1 or 2 that he's got to win over. You know, to have a W over Jalen is a very difficult thing to do, and I would say that's one of his best wins, top 1 or 2 wins in his career. because that guy's a very difficult guy to fight. And to get a win over him is like right up there. So, and just the adversity he had to go through into the broken arm. He would have known something's wrong with his face. He would have been like, there's something wrong with that, but I just got to carry on. Like, just the adversity he had to go through in the fight. Just an amazing guy, amazing athlete. He's just on a different level. His desire to win, his threshold, his tolerance to pain is on a different level to other people. And that's it.
I've always said he can't buy his undies off the shelf, that's for sure. But how long is he going to be out with that?
So he stayed behind in surgery. I don't think that they wouldn't have allowed him to fly home anyway. I know his wife's over there, so at least he's in good company. And he's going to stay and get some surgery, fix himself up, have a little holiday. It's a forced holiday. He has to have a holiday anyway, so he should have a little holiday. I think his daughter's back in New Zealand, so he won't want to make his holiday too long. He'll want to get back to his daughter. But yeah, have surgery, have a little holiday, come back, and and he can just heal, go through the process of healing and rehabbing his multiple injuries. So I'm not sure on what the timeline is, the date that he'll be back, but I would safely say that coming back this year is going to be a stretch. Yeah, so maybe early next year. But he never, that guy, he don't stick to schedules. Like if he wants to do something, he's a very determined man. He does it. Yeah.
And then, of course, the big one, and Volk was always a little bit worried about about how things would work. But the camp obviously went really well. I've talked to Blood before. He said that he was way better at the end of the camp than he was at the start.
Yeah, for sure, and that's perfect. And that's what you want. Yeah. I was in good communication with Bloods and Carl, and there were certain things that, I mean, having Bloods there gave me a good level of confidence, because I know Bloods so well, and I know there's certain things that you can garner from Bloods that are 100% going to help with Yair. Okay, he's a great UFC fighter and stuff, and Bloods isn't necessarily a great UFC fighter, not yet, but he's a great stand-up kickboxer with a very unique style, and their two styles not the same, but very similar, and very hard to find people with Yair's style. But luckily, we had that resource available to us. I was like, Joe, I got a guy, and Joe knew anyway. Yeah. And we flew him over, and obviously we had Carl Van Roon over there, and those guys did a great job. They had a great job preparing Volk for some of those stunts, which is spinning kicks to the body, push kicks down the middle. Yeah, and it was just, like I'm telling you, like, the guy surprised me in the first Max fight. Then he surprised me in the third Max fight. I'm talking about how good he was. Yeah. And then he surprised me again in this fight. I'm like, the guy, like, he talks about how he's constantly learning and finding a new level. Well, he literally does find a new level. Yeah. And he's just a perfect student. Like, he's just everything Joe, if Joe sets that game plan down, it's a very thorough game plan. And Volk knows that's what I have to do. That's my path to victory. And you need someone. You've got to have faith. You're a new student, but you've got to have faith in your team, that they're putting the strategy in place for you to win. And he has complete faith in Joe's strategy and what Joe sets forward, and he follows it to a T. And so far, Joe hasn't been wrong. So, yeah, what can I say?
Well, like, he's a veteran champion, but he still considers himself to be a learner, basically.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been around the sport for a long time, and I know some very dedicated men, and I know champions who are the best in the world at the sport. None of them do what Volk does, and they're all great champions, and they all have great attributes, and there's great characteristics that they have that Volk doesn't have. But none of them, not one single one of them, do what Volk does. Volk wins a world championship, and I've seen him back in the gym within 2 or 3 days. Back in the gym after winning a world championship at the highest level. Millions of people watching him. However much money he earns, movie stars, Mark Zuckerberg, you name it. But what does he do? He strolls back into the gym, you know, after his fight, straight after his fight, and he gets on with the art of martial arts and just getting better at, you know, aggregating his small little 1% gains. He does it straight away. This is take away the talent, take away how good Joe is as a coach, how good his team is freestyle, how good CKB's contribution is. Take that all away. That's a formula for success that will not fail, that very few people can do. This, I think, above everything, is his secret to his success that we're seeing now, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. Yeah.
Well, that was a great weekend, and this weekend you go from one end of the extreme, the best in the business, to the learners in the business with the Alta program.
Yeah. My 2 favourite nights of the year, and I don't care, and that includes Dan and 290, UFC 290. My 2 favourite nights are the 2 times that I run the Alta fight nights. They'd be far better than any UFC or anything. There's something special about taking people, or a fighter, someone, for their first fight. That is a special experience that happens. And you don't get, when you're in a gym, you don't often get to go through that. Because how many fighters do you introduce to the sport a year? 10, 15 a year? So you get to get it 10 times a year. But when you do Alta, I have 50 people having their first fight. That's like unique. And I love it, because they've all prepared, they've done 20-week camp, they've all prepared. They don't know anything about fighting. They started as complete novices, and now they think they're ready for the UFC. No, they don't, but now they have some skills. But it's the psychological part of the sport that they're dealing with. The mental side, that's where they're going to get the benefit. And that all happens now, fight week. It's fight week for them. Yeah. And that's a great thing. The fighting is relative. Like, these guys, Volk has had his fight, and it was the most important fight in his life. It was the most important fight happening in the world at that time. Well, these guys are going to have their fight, and it's relative, because to them, they may as well be Volk. It's the most important thing in their life. It's the whole world will stop for that time. And the experience that they're going to have is going to be exactly the same as Volk's. It's going to be exactly the same. The intensity is going to be the same. What's on the line is going to be the same. It's such a great thing. Like, it's such a great sport, and it's such a great thing. This is why I recommend that everybody, once in their life, do an organised fight, not some stupid thing that you do in the backyard, but an organised fight. Train for it. Get good coaches. Get a good team. Get a good event. Get good officials, and you'll never not gain anything positive out of this experience. Yeah.
Well, something else that's new to the gym is the reality show that you're filming, and I believe that the applications are still open.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited about it. It's something different that I'm trying out. It's going to be an experience. But there's heaps of applications that have been through, and the applications are still open. And yeah, I encourage people to come and apply. 8 people are going to be chosen. They're going to do kind of like a trial for 8 weeks. And in that 8 weeks, all expenses are going to be paid. Their accommodation, their travel to the gym, everything is going to be paid for. And then one of them will be chosen to remain on and just stay with the team. And they'll get all their expenses and living costs all paid for. And they'll get to stay with the team for 12 months. And who knows, they might be the next damn UFC fighter, but they just get to immerse themselves in our culture and our team and see what it's like. I mean, even if you're one of the 8 guys that come here for 8 weeks, I'm obviously biased, but I think you'll get something to add to if you're not one of the ones chosen to stay, if you're not the guy chosen to stay, you're still going to get something to add to your overall game, your overall MMA game. Obviously, we produce some good fighters here, so you get access to all that information that we try to disseminate amongst everybody. So it's pretty cool. There's a lot of applications for us to get through, but we'll troll our way through them, and I'm sure there'll be more. They're still open at the moment. So
Open for another week, I believe.
Open for another week, so yeah, I encourage everybody to jump on. What do you got to lose? Get it to 8-week holiday.
Hey, cheers, thanks for everything, and the big catch up, and we wish Dan all the best, the quick recovery, and yeah, thanks for talking to us.
Awesome. Thanks,
I know how tired you are, mate. Good on you.